Hi, welcome to my channel, Mostly Knitting. I'm Tash, and if you're new here, this is a podcast where I talk mostly about the knitting that I've been doing during the week. And at the end of the podcast, I usually put a little bit at the end, usually just a few minutes on my personal stuff. But my family just went to Japan for a couple of weeks just before Christmas. And so I've decided to create this whole section as the personal stuff podcast for our trip to Japan. So I'm just going to have one little segment on knitting in the beginning, and then I'll jump into our Japan trip. So because it is a knitting podcast, I will put something in about knitting, and then I'll talk about Japan, because I've already done a video on our Japan yarn, the Japan yarn stores that I visited in Kyoto. So in my regular podcast, I have a segment called Friend from the Vault, which is a segment where I talk about something that I knit earlier. And so what I thought I'd do today, because it's quite warm, I don't want to put a jumper on, but I did put these mittens on that I made, I made these in 2010. So this is Grove by Jared Flood. And they're like quite intricate mittens. I saw them in a Classic Elite book that he did back before he was doing his own sort of, designing individually, although I think he did a bit individually, but back then he was actually working for Classic Elite. And so I used the recommended yarn, which is Classic Elite Princess. I decided to buy that yarn because I just thought for something this involved, I really wanted to use the yarn that was recommended to make sure I got, the right size and the recommended and the results that I was expecting. Right, so I used just over one ball. This yarn is discontinued, so I used even the color that was recommended in the pattern. It took quite a long time. Looking at my notes, it took me about 2.5 months, but I don't just knit on one thing. So, but with all of these twisted stitches and everything, like heaps and heaps of twisted stitches. Obviously mittens don't normally take very long, and it's not a lot of knitting. It was 150 meters, but still with all of those twisted stitches and the charts and the design, it did take a while. I think I had to blow the chart up because it was so minuscule, and that was back when I had decent eyesight. So yeah, I knit these in 2010. I actually took these mittens to Japan, but I didn't actually wear them, and that's probably because that's what made me think about them for Friend from the Vault. That's probably because I didn't have anything that kind of went with it in this color. So it was definitely cold enough, but I actually think when we were in Hirafu, which is a ski resort, which I'll get into all of that shortly, but the temperatures there were around -5 degrees Celsius. And these, even though mittens keep your hands warmer, because of like the lace and everything, they just wouldn't have kept my hands warm. Although they feel very warm right now, but it's about 20 degrees Celsius right now. So these would have been fine. I reckon these would be quite good in about sort of 5 to 10 degrees Celsius weather, but probably not sub-zero temperatures. You kind of need your ski gloves for that, or, better. So I did everything as the pattern suggested. There was only one size. I'd say probably if I was ever to knit them again, and I probably won't, just doesn't get cold enough here for mittens that often. The cuff is just a little bit loose. I sort of think with mittens you want that cuff close, so I probably would have maybe done a 3.75 millimeter. It's a knit on a 4 millimeter needle. I probably would have used maybe a 3.75 mil for the cuff. But other than that, I still think they're really, really pretty. And now that I think about it, I think maybe I'll put these in my car in winter. When it gets to winter, just a few months away. Because I do like having, warm hands on my way to work, especially because my classes start at 7. 3 days a week I'll be starting at 7 in the morning, actually teaching at 7 in the morning, so leaving around 6:30 a.m. So it'd be good to have warm mittens. And sorry, if you're new here, I'm normally a high school maths teacher. That's sort of my main job. And yes, in my free time I knit. And I do teach knitting at Skane Sisters about 1 day a month. Right, so anyway, that's this, because this is a different kind of podcast. That's my Friend from the Vault section, and I'm going to start talking a little bit about our Japan trip, which did start in Tokyo. So I went with my husband and 2 of my 3 children. My son, Zach, he's 16, and my daughter, Alex, she's 18. So it was pretty jam-packed in those 2 weeks. My husband did all of the organising. There was no tours or anything. He organised all the flights and the accommodation and everything. And and in a country with a foreign language, it was quite a challenge for those moments where we had to get from A to B, because things are, you're not as familiar with how things work. And in Japan, especially like in sort of in the cities, they seem to have like there's a train line, like a big train line, the JR line, and then you have an electric railway and you have a subway as well. And they kind of, sometimes they have stations that are the same name but different lines. So yeah, it is a bit of like quite a bit of working out, am I getting the right ticket for the right train on the right platform? Anyway, we got there and we returned home safely. So all's well that ends well, and we didn't miss any of our connections. We left heaps of time, especially for the bullet train. We wanted to make sure we didn't miss that because that was tickets we already had booked. Right, anyway, so I'll jump into it. We landed in Tokyo. We went for 2 weeks. We returned home on the 24th of December, and we actually left on the 10th of December, so we were away for a full 2 weeks. And I'll try not to get into boring detail. I'll just sort of hit the highlights. We got into Tokyo in the evening, like 8 p.m, really late, got a cab straight to the hotel. Now we did stay at that crazy hotel, the Under Railway Hotel, and I just thought, we'll be so tired, we'll sleep. No. So the hotel had a cafe in it that was open until 11 p.m, so that was great. So the kids got something to eat and we all sort of crashed around 11, but the trains were like clonk, 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 and then nothing. And about 30 seconds later, clonk, 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 clonk. It was so hard to sleep. And even though I was really tired, I struggled. So the trains actually stopped running about 12:30 in the morning. It was a bit of a novelty. We thought it might be a bit fun, but I just would not stay there again. What was really sweet about it, and I've discovered that actually a lot of hotels in Japan are like this, they have like an amenities section where they've got earplugs, which this hotel needed, but they didn't really work enough to stop the noise. They have earplugs, toothpaste and toothbrush, hairbrushes, socks, hairbands, all just like in little sections, and you can just take what you need, which is really nice. It's a really funny hotel because the ceilings are really low, and like none of us are very tall, but my son might be 5'9", maybe 5'10". Anyway, he couldn't walk through without ducking. Anyway, it was a bit of fun. We stayed there, but yes, it was hard to sleep, and it was it's Tokyo hotels. It was incredibly cramped, but we were just there for the one night. And so when we got up in the morning, we didn't have very long, and we had to make our way out to Hakone on the way, like to hopefully see Mount Fuji, which we didn't get to see because of the weather, but that was the idea. So we only sort of had the morning and lunchtime in Tokyo, and the area we were in was called the Akihabara District, which is sort of known for its gaming and there were huge claw machines, and like we sort of stayed there mostly sort of because we thought it might be interesting for our son who plays Genshin, but I think they just have so many different games there. There wasn't that much on Genshin, so it wasn't as interesting for him as we thought it might have been, but it was still interesting, and I definitely want to go back to Tokyo, maybe stay in a different district, stay for a bit longer, and I definitely want to go to the Ghibli Museum. So I really love animated movies, and I particularly love the Ghibli movies. Like I love Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, Ponyo. They're just so different and really, anyway, I really love them. And so I would have liked to have had time to go to that museum. So that will have to be perhaps another trip to Japan. Anyway, I think it sounds like it's worth it. And next time I'll make time for it. I just hadn't, because my husband planned everything and I was a bit slack on that. I was busy at school and just focused on getting everything, reports and comments and everything, marking and everything done for the end of the year. It was sort of, he'd already booked all of the times in all of the places, and then I was like, I really want to go to that museum, but we didn't have long enough, and it wasn't close enough to our hotel. That's on me, right? Like I should have put a bit more time into it beforehand, but I hope to go back, so that is something that I'd like to do. Right, so in the early afternoon we left Tokyo, so we really didn't have very long, just sort of wandered around and looked, and then in the area, and the kids tried the claw machines, didn't do very well, and then we went to caught the train to a town called Hakone, and that was amazing. So we went really cheap in Tokyo at the Under Railway Hotel, but we stayed in a really nice hotel in Hakone. I'm just looking at the name of it, the Yumoto Fujiya Hotel. And there was an onsen in the hotel, which if you don't know about onsens, they're a Japanese bathhouse. They're completely at least all the ones I went to or knew of, completely segregated. So the women are in one, the men are in another, and they're just, yeah, like you're fully naked, but it's single sex, and it's very relaxing, and you wash down before you wash. They have little stations where you wash your body, and then you go in like the spa. It's not really a spa, but in the warm, like it's 40 degree temperature baths or more, a little bit. They're very warm. And yeah, anyway, so this hotel had an onsen in it. It was really lovely. So, and just the views, we had a lovely dinner that night. They're really into their pork in Japan, with this like amazing dinner. Oh, one thing I will say in Japan, you really want to make sure you have some cash, have some yen, because there are a lot of places that don't take credit cards, particularly restaurants. So, and you'll just miss out on, and it's also frustrating, or if you buy something at a market or whatever at the shops, you definitely want to make sure you've got cash. I did have a little bit of trouble getting cash out on my card, but thankfully managed to, so that was good. Yeah, so we stayed in Hakone that night, had a lovely dinner. We went out on the next day. There's this amazing circuit, which is all sort of like different forms of public transport, like train and bus and an overhead like cable and a boat. But because the weather was so bad, there was no point doing the overhead cable, and we didn't quite have enough time to do the whole circuit, because we had to catch I can't remember what we were doing. Yeah, we had to catch a bullet train to Kyoto. So, because like we only had one day there. But if I go again, and I would very much like to, because we didn't get to see Mount Fuji because of the weather, I would really like to do that, have enough time in Hakone to do that whole circuit. But we did manage to catch the scenic railway, which has a lot of these little switchbacks, like it sort of goes and then it stops, like it's really steep and quite sheer. It was really very cool. So we caught the railway up, I can't remember the name of the town, Garo or something. I'll put the name where we went to. We went to this fabulous gyoza restaurant where like people were all waiting up in line ready for it to open at 11:30. That was just delicious. I love gyoza. And I mean, I love Japanese food generally, like the sushi and hot food as well. And we definitely ate well when we were there. So we had this lovely gyoza. Then we went to the Hakone Open Air Museum. We didn't have as much time there as I would have liked. It was amazing. And being an open air museum, thankfully the weather, even though it was cloudy, it was like misty. It wasn't, pouring down with rain or anything. We wandered around. There's a lot of Picasso sculptures and paintings and things there, and just it was really, really cool. I put quite a bit of footage of like some photos and things of, they had this like whole stream where you, like a foot bath where you can put your feet in, like take your shoes and socks off and put your feet in and rest your feet because you're wandering around the museum. Anyway, and Zach loved it. That's one of the things that I find really interesting as my kids grow and we, take them somewhere, expose them to something. They and we discover there's something that they love that you never even realized they loved. Like when we first took Zach to Hamilton, I was a bit like, oh, I really like it. It's musical, He loved it, and it was like American history. He didn't know, even though my husband's American, he didn't know a lot of the story, but through the way it was told and the singing and particularly the style of rap and everything, he was totally into it. And now that's a thing, right? We go and see musicals together. And he sings as well. So he and Alex have both had singing lessons. So that's a thing. Anyway, so museums, I'm like, and when, asking him what some of his highlights were, that open air museum was one of the highlights. And it's interesting as your children discover that they themselves like something, like they didn't even know that about themselves. Look at that, I like museums. So yeah, so that was really, really cool. I just wish we had a little bit more time. So we didn't have quite as long at the Hakone Open Air Museum that I would have liked. We had a bit over an hour, but which was good. We still got to see quite a bit, but I would have loved maybe 2 or 3 hours there. So then we went back to Hakone and caught a bullet train to Kyoto, and then I think we just got a cab to our hotel because it was pretty late. And cabs actually aren't that expensive. Like by the time we'd paid for train tickets for all of us, wouldn't have been much more than the cab. So much less than the cab. So, and also just because of like what I was saying about the whole, am I on this train, and carting our suitcases, because we were going skiing at the end of the trip, we had quite a bit of luggage. Anyway, we had 4 days in Kyoto, and that was really lovely. So on the first day, we went to the Inari Shrine. I wasn't quite prepared for that. I didn't have my best walking shoes on there because there's a lot of walking up to the top, and you go through all of these arches. And yeah, it was really amazing, and that was really cool, but I just wish I'd had better walking shoes on that day. And then after that, we went to the Kinkakuji Shrine, which is probably one of the most sort of famous shrines or temples in Japan, because it's stunning. I'll put some photos up, but it's just absolutely stunning. The building itself with the gold leaf with the pond surrounding it, yeah, it's just incredible. So that was amazingly beautiful in person and definitely worth seeing. So then that afternoon I went to Walnut, Kyoto, and I've got another whole video of going there. So I had about an hour and a half at Walnut. I would have liked the whole day there, but and Paul and Zach went to a public onsen. And so Zach hadn't been to an onsen before, and that was probably a bit confronting for him as a 16-year-old boy. But I'm really proud of him. Like, obviously I wasn't there, it's men, but my husband said, yeah, he was just like comfortable and seemed, or if he was uncomfortable, he managed to, settle into it and just enjoy the whole bath experience thing. So yeah, so they did that. And then I can't remember what at dinner that night. Then we had, the next day we had a tea ceremony booked, and that was really lovely. It was green matcha tea. I can't say I love it by itself. Like, I really like it with milk, but yeah, it was fun, like making the whole tea and everything. But yes, it wasn't as fun drinking it. I would have liked like some milk, and maybe, I don't drink sugar in my tea, but definitely milk. And we went to the bamboo forest. That was one of Zach's big picks. He really wanted to go to the bamboo forest, and it was really cool. You had to catch a train out there, not a long train, but 40 minutes out of town or whatever. I have to say, I was expecting it to be a bit bigger, but maybe that's good. So when I think forest, I think, miles and miles. It was pretty small, but it was cool, and it was good to see it. And then on the way back, we went to the monkey park, and that was really fun, actually. You got to feed the monkeys, and again, that was another big walk. Thankfully, I had walking shoes on that day. A big walk up to the monkey park was actually at the sort of top of this hill. But yeah, it was really, really cool. The kids, we all got to feed the monkeys, mostly apples and peanuts and things. They like the apples best. Yeah, so that was good. And then I don't know if it was that afternoon, I get a bit muddled with days, and I guess it doesn't really matter. One thing that I went to in Kyoto, which I went to and nobody else did, they all just went and had some sake, although not Zach, but he was hanging out with them. I went to the Nishiki markets, and they were fantastic. Huge. They had all sorts of like food stalls and craft and like shopping, normal shopping. Like, I bought dried strawberries and I'm trying to think what else, dried mango, which everybody demolished, right? So like, I'm still the mum in the trip, right? I've got all the snacks for the train trips, and I'm hungry, and we're not nearing anything. I'm like, okay, what's in my bag? Oh yeah, I've got a water bottle and snacks and things, and so yeah, that's still my role. And yeah, so I bought some of that. I'd hoped to buy some knives, because apparently there are knives there. Our daughter Mia, the one who stayed home, she's 21 now, and she will move out eventually, and I would have liked to have bought her some knives to take with her when she does move out, like in her glory box, which is basically in my mum's garage. She's got a whole bunch of stuff there ready for when she does move out. Anyway, I couldn't find any knives there, but I did find some beautiful glasses, and yeah, I thought she'd really like those, so I got those for her. Particularly, it was her 21st birthday on the 26th of December, so I got her quite a few things for her birthday from there. And so that was the Nishiki markets, totally worth going to. So I went there in the evening. They shut about 6. Then the next day was when my husband and I went to the outdoor market, which is only open that once a month on the 15th of the month, and that was really fun. And that was very much locals. There was this bread place, because they're really into their dairy and their breads, which is great because I love all of that. So, and there was this big long line with everybody with their trays ready to get their breads. And so they had like French toast and this cheesy onion bread and like donuts and like the food, so amazing. Anyway, so that was really fun, the outdoor market. And that's also where I bought some of the KMS yarn and some other presents and things like wallets and pencil cases and stuff. And my husband bought his sake set, so that was lovely. And then we went to Avril Pepin. So the Avril Pepin is in what I bought there is in my Japan yarn store video. So that was really cool as well. That was a really lovely yarn store with lots of novelty and different kind of yarn. And it is something that I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about incorporating more in my videos. Yeah, so Avril Pepin was great, and I would like to incorporate a little bit more of some novelty yarns in some of my projects. There's a knitwear designer, Pope Vergara. She has lots of really lovely embellished designs that have little a lot of mohair sort of strips and little just playing with yarn. And I think I've done a lot of standard sweaters and dresses and cardigans and various things. Kind of would like to be, I don't need to knit for my wardrobe, although I do enjoy doing that. But I was thinking, it might be nice to play with yarn a little bit more, as more like a bit more creative and a bit more experimental. And yes, they had beautiful yarn for that. And they recommended this fantastic ramen place just around the corner. And I guess that's what you're going to find from the locals. They're going to tell you where the best places to eat are. So that was a big part of the trip, all the eating. And then I think that afternoon we went to a pig cafe, which Japan definitely has some unusual kind of things. I guess, we have cat cafes now here in Sydney, but it probably started in Japan because I definitely saw some cat cafes there as well. Anyway, they have a pig cafe, and we all enjoyed that except Zach. He was not a big fan of pigs crawling all over him. They were very sweet little micro pigs, even the big ones. They were really lovely and very friendly. And they gave you a blanket to put on your lap, and the pigs would come up to you and they'd back into you. It was really funny. And so they'd sort of back into you and sit on the blanket and just plop themselves down. I don't know, I thought it was quite sweet. And I think that night we went out to, my husband had booked a kaiseki dinner, which is like a multi-course dinner. He and I both enjoyed it. The kids not so much, but it's good to expose them to things. And then I think the next day we, I can't remember what we did, just futzed around in the morning and then caught a train to Osaka. That was incredibly crowded. It was, like a bit of a commuter-ish kind of train. We've got all our suitcases and we only just managed to squeeze everybody on. It was pretty full on. Anyway, then we went to Osaka and we had 2 days in Osaka. We were staying in a district called the Dontobori District, and it's very much like Times Square in New York with lots of neon lights and signs and it's a real experience in itself. Now, having lived in New York, I was not, for me, a big fan of Times Square. I didn't spend a lot of time there. But I guess in Osaka it was somewhere different, and it was really fun. Everything was like, we were out really late in the night and there were just the streets packed with people. It was very cool. And went did a sushi train there that was like 2 levels and just, it was enormous. Anyway, so that was fun. And then the next day, we only had one more day in Osaka, and that day was for Universal Studios. So Universal Studios was fantastic. It was like a bit of a Disneyland in that sort of sense that it had lots of rides. It had Super Nintendo, I don't know if it's called Super Nintendo World or whatever, but that was incredible. It reminded me of when we took the kids to Disneyland and the whole Cars set or section that just looks like you've walked onto a set, and it's like an experience just being there. And I felt that in the Super Nintendo world. It was like because the kids, it was really funny actually. The kids and my husband and I, we play Mario Party. And so we were all very familiar with all of the characters and Bowser and the flowers, the chomp, and like if you're not into Mario Party or any of that, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But the four of us play Mario Party a lot, and we have done for the last few years. And like I love it. I'm dreadful at it. I'm really good at mashing, so that's my one skill. Most of the mini games I failed dreadfully at, but anyway, it was really fun. And so what it's like is when you're there, it's like all of these things that are familiar to you. And so yeah, we had a lot of fun. I think there's a Harry Potter section, but none of us are that into Harry Potter. Mia, who stayed home, she is, but the rest of us, like, I think I got halfway through, sorry if you love Harry Potter, I got halfway through the first book and was like, I don't think this is really for me. Anyway, so that didn't grab me, but we went on lots of rides, and we're definitely a roller coaster ride family. Like, we love the rides. I can get a bit queasy, so I don't like the ones, I like the actual roller coasters where you're getting flung around, but I don't like the ones where you're kind of in something and it, you move, but it, like you're getting a visual, like they, what do you call it? Like you've got a green screen with stuff on you. That actually does, or two-dimensional spinning, I get a little bit queasy. But as long as you're sort of moving 3 dimensions, flipping around, whatever. There was a roller coaster where you went backwards. That was awesome. That was so cool. Anyway, I love roller coasters. Universal Studios, I highly recommend it. There's lots of other people have done videos on what to do there. I probably should have spent a bit more time. Like, you get an entry pass to a section, like a timed entry pass. You can't get, once you've left, you can't get back in. So that was, we hadn't really paid full attention to that. So that was a bit of a bummer, not being able to get back into Super Nintendo World. But we had a good time there, and yeah, it was so cool. Yeah, and you can't buy the tickets from, just if you happen to be going, you can't buy the tickets from the Japan website without a Japanese credit card. So I bought it through Klook, Klook, if you're ever planning to go. Yeah, it was so fun. So that was that day, and then the next day we left. We actually had to catch a flight to Niseko. So we flew to Sapporo, which is another island on the island Hokkaido, and then we caught like a bus that took about 3 hours out to Niseko, and the resort town that we were in was called Hirafu, and we spent 5 nights there, and that was great. Like, we all love skiing. I spent a ski season in Colorado in Steamboat Springs back when I was, I don't know, mid-20s, and I was a lift operator there. And I also did a summer season in Vail as well, but obviously in winter, like that was, I did a whole ski season in Steamboat Springs, and that was really, so I'm really comfortable skiing. The kids love it. My husband snowboards. We all really enjoy it. So, and the snow was amazing. If we'd done, and thankfully, because we had really warm temperatures in Kyoto, like really warm, and we were getting a bit worried, like, you know, would there, because there hadn't been any snow in Hirafu, and then like the 2 days before we came, it dumped down there. And like when we were in Universal Studios, that day was when the change came. It was 2 degrees Celsius at Universal World, which is 36 Fahrenheit. So it was cold, like we were really well rugged up. But that was the change of the weather, which was obviously fantastic for skiing. It was like -5 degrees Celsius, -5, -6 degrees Celsius, which is about, about 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And it was pretty much the same in the night and the day. Like, it never really warmed up during the day. And obviously that's why I guess the snow's really good. So it was that the snow was fantastic. The only difficult part, well, not difficult, a bit of a bummer. It's always a bit of a bummer. Where we were staying, the beds were dreadful. Like, you could feel the springs in the mattress, and the pillows were awful. And like, it's a ski resort, it's expensive. We're all 4 of us in one room. The kids were in a loft on things that were not even mattresses. They were just things thrown down on the floor. So it wasn't the best place to stay for that reason. Like, the bedding wasn't great, but it was really close to the ski resorts. They had a common room where you could make yourself tea in the morning, and you know, like they had a fridge there, and that's good for me because I get up earlier than other people, so I like to have my tea and my quiet time in, you know, so to be able to do that was really nice. Yeah, and so we skied like the 4 days that we were there, which was fantastic. I haven't skied since 2017 in the US when we were visiting my husband's family there. So that was great. Like, I loved doing that. It was great skiing with the whole family, and you know, we sort of paired off, and it's hard to ski with all 4 people, so we sort of split off in pairs at various times. So I think that's kind of it for that. You know, then we caught flights just straight back home and landed on the 24th of December in the morning, back ready for Christmas. You can see the Christmas tree is still up. Today's actually, as I'm recording now, it's the 1st of January. This probably won't go up until maybe the 6th of January by the time I actually put all the photos and things in this. I'm a bit slow at the editing, especially with this, with a lot of photos that I want to chuck in to show you. But yeah, so it was good. It was good to be back for Christmas. We had such a great time. And then in my next video, which will probably come out before this one, I'll just talk about like my week back in normal. So this is it for like the sort of specialty Japan video. It's just what we did. Like, it's not an official, this is what you should do in Japan. It's just what we got up to. And yeah, I'd love to go back because it was really fun. And I wish I'd spoke a little bit more Japanese. Like, you know, you learn a few phrases and things, but like, and a lot of people did speak English, but it's always nice to try. And yeah, it was just very cool, very culturally, very different. Oh, one thing I'll just mention, just when I was thinking about culturally, a lot of the places that we went to, if you buy some food somewhere, they had signs like, please don't take this somewhere else, eat in front of this store. And I was like, I wonder what that's about. And then I Googled it and looked it up. Apparently it's a bit of a thing in Japan. Generally, there's not a lot of walking and eating. So maybe it's something to do with, you know, paying respect to the food that you're eating. Someone's prepared it, you know, honoring that. And I think it's healthy anyway. It's probably good for your digestion and just good for your mindfulness to not be, you know, whether that's sitting down and scrolling while you're eating or, you know, even reading a book. I find when I'm eating, I don't want headphones in because that kind of bothers me to have headphones in and eat. But I'm trying more when I eat to just be like focused on the food, and perhaps if I'm like eating with family, the conversation with the family. But other than that, anyway, I just thought that's a thing. Walking and eating in Japan is not really a thing. They just generally don't do it. I mean, a coffee or something is fine, but not like an actual meal. And I did see people doing it with ice cream. So maybe it's just like meals. Anyway, just what I noticed. Right, so thanks for watching. This is sort of, this will come out on the weekend, but other than that, like I'll be just doing my regular videos on Wednesdays and my tutorials generally on the weekends. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you found something interesting in this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.